Hello world! Today we are going to continue the eyeshadow basics series with the color wheel and how to pair up eyeshadow colors. Hey everybody, Shelly here, and today I have got a video on the color wheel and using color theory to pair up eyeshadow colors. Now, in future videos, we're going to get into warm tones, cool tones, how you can choose colors to enhance your eye color, to enhance your own skin tone, all those kinds of things. But today we are going to go over some of the terminology, how to use the color wheel, what is the color wheel, where do colors fall on the color wheel, and how you build relationships between colors and choose eyeshadows based on those relationships. So that's where we're going to start off today. If you have not seen the first set of videos in this series on eyeshadow placement techniques, sort of the basics of strategy of placing colors on your eye, I will link those down below so you can catch up if necessary or if you just need a refresher. And today we're going to get into color, which is, I think, the most fun of all of this. Now, I am not a makeup artist. I am not a professional by any stretch. I've learned this through art school, and applying it to makeup has been a challenge because there's not a lot of information out there when you buy these gigantic palettes of all different colors. And what do you do when you get tired of watching YouTube videos and just copying other people's looks? How do you start putting looks together on your own? So I am putting together this series of building blocks, starting out with placement strategies so you can think about light and dark and where you put color on your eyes. Now we're going to get into choosing the actual colors, and then we'll get into how to further enhance your choices to complement whatever kind of a look you're going for. So that's kind of the background in all of this. I'm just hoping that my version of explaining this stuff helps somebody out there, because I know that lots of people on YouTube have helped me to come to my own personal understandings of these things, and hopefully I can help one of you. So let's kick this off with some terminology and some nerdy vocabulary. Let's get everybody on the same page talking about the color wheel, and then we'll take a look at eyeshadow. So first up, the color wheel. All right, let's nerd out a little bit with the color wheel. So we're going to go through some of the terminology and relationships that involve the color wheel. You don't necessarily have to remember all of the terminology that goes along with this, but it is valuable to learn the relationships between the colors. So we are going to look at the different kinds of colors in the color wheel and then look at a couple of strategies on how to choose colors and pair them up so that they make harmonious or complementary, nice looking color schemes. Now, my color wheel is clearly triangular. I think it's a little bit easier to see the relationships between the colors when we've got them in a triangle layout like this, but you can feel free to use any color wheel you would like. You should probably go online if you don't have access to a picture of a color wheel or you don't have it memorized. Print something out. I will make a copy of this color wheel available for you guys to download if you would like to print out a copy and just keep it with your makeup stash, which is what I do, so that I can easily reference the color wheel when I am deciding what colors I would like to use for a makeup look. So first off, we're going to start by looking at the primary colors, and the primary colors are your red, blue, and yellow. And combining these primary colors will give you your secondary colors. So if you combine red and yellow, you're going to get orange. And if you combine blue and yellow, you're going to get green. And if you combine blue and red, you're going to get violet. And those colors that are made by combining primary colors are called secondary colors. There's your violet, there's your orange, there's your green. Now, when you start combining a primary color plus a secondary color, what you end up getting are what they call tertiary colors, or your third colors. So if you combine a red and an orange, you're going to get red-orange. If you combine an orange and a yellow, you're going to get yellow-orange. If you combine a yellow and a green, you're going to get yellow-green, and so on around the color wheel. So those make up your 2 sets of tertiary colors. So here is the first set of tertiary colors with your red-violet and your blue-green and your yellow-orange. And then the second set of tertiary colors, you've got your red-orange, your yellow-green, and your blue-violet. So those are all of the colors that make up the entire color wheel. Now, when we decide what colors go together, it's really a process of just looking at the color wheel and picking a strategy for choosing your colors. Now, if you combine a primary color and a secondary color, that will usually give you a pretty bold sort of a look that is striking, but generally looks very nice. So here is a combination of your primary and secondary colors. Now, if we think about how we might combine these into different looks, for example, a look with purple and blue, a combination of a primary and secondary color, would look pretty nice. Or if we were to combine red and orange, a primary and a secondary, they would look pretty nice as well. They tend to be bolder types of looks, but you can get away with pretty much all of them, especially with the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So your red and your orange and your yellow and your green and your blue and your purple. But that's not to say you couldn't combine purple and orange or blue and yellow. Or does this look like Christmas? Yes, it does. So combining a primary and a secondary color is one way to get a pretty bold, sort of colorful look to your eye makeup. Now, another strategy you can use is to pick complementary colors. And complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So if you look at the entire color wheel, red would be opposite of green, blue would be opposite of orange, but also your yellow-green would be opposite your red-violet, your blue-violet would be opposite your yellow-orange. So this applies to all of the colors, including your tertiary colors. So they're all fair game when dealing with a complementary color scheme. So here is what a blue and orange would look like across from each other. And here is what a purple and yellow would look like. Purple and gold are pretty common colors to combine with each other. So these would be what we call complementary color schemes. Anytime you're picking 2 colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. A variation on a complementary color scheme would be a split complement. And that is when you take one color, go across the color wheel to the one that would be opposite of it, which would have been orange, but instead of using the orange, use the 2 colors to the immediate left and right of the complement. So in this case, it would be blue with red-orange and yellow-orange. And that is what we call a split complement. And you can do that all the way across the color wheel. Just pick one color, go across the color wheel, but then use the colors on the immediate left and right of the color that is the complement. So that is called a split complement, and it gives you a little bit more color variation, a little bit more visual interest to your color scheme. But again, it's still very harmonious, very complementary, if you will. The last one I want to talk about is the analogous color scheme, and this is when you pick colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So pretty much any 3 colors that are all in sequence next to each other on the color wheel. So this would be an analogous color scheme using your violet along with your red-violet and your blue-violet. And you can do this all the way around the color wheel as well. Your red-violet, red and red-orange, or you could do your red-orange, orange and yellow-orange, or you could do your yellow-orange, yellow and yellow-green. You could use your blue-green, your green, and your yellow-green. You could use your blue-green, your blue, and your blue-violet. You could use all of these series of colors, and you basically just pick 3 that are next to each other on the color wheel, all the way around the color wheel. And that will give you a look that is not incredibly bold and popping, but a very sort of, not even muted. It's colorful, but it's got dimension. All of the colors are similar to each other, but they are not the same. So you can get a very nice dimension kind of look from Analogous color schemes. Now, of course, you could also just do a monochromatic color scheme, and a monochromatic scheme would be picking one color from the color wheel and then just doing what they call tints and shades of that color. So if you took red and you added white to it, you would be making a tint of red, and so red with some white is usually pink. If you took that same red and added black to it, you'd be talking about a shade of red. So we would be talking a dark red, maybe a brick red. So if you used a brick red, a primary red, and a pink in your eye look, you would be using a monochromatic color scheme. Anytime you pick one color and just do lights and darks of that color, you're talking monochromatic. And those can be very beautiful as well. There's really no right or wrong way to think about these when choosing which approach to use for makeup, because they really all can work. The other thing you want to keep in mind is this doesn't necessarily have to be limited to your eye makeup. You might have a split complement color scheme and two of the colors are on your eyes and one of them is on your lips. And you might use that to sort of bring your entire makeup look together, and that is totally fine as well. You can use this as a guide to pick all of your makeup colors. It works for choosing your blush, it works for choosing your lipstick, it works for choosing your eyeshadow colors. It really is just all about playing with color, and this is just one step in choosing the colors that will mathematically work well with each other. But remember, there are no rules in makeup. You do what you want and you do you, and anything you do is a-okay. So this is just a starting point to get you playing around with different colors and matching them up and pairing them up and trying out some new things. Now that we've got the color wheel out of the way, let's talk about eyeshadow. So let's start out with the eyeshadow that I'm wearing. If you can get past these insane lashes. These are the Medusa's makeup lashes, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to wear them again. If you saw my unboxing of my Medusa's makeup subscription last month, I did a bunch of damage to these lashes, and I figured I would give them another try again today, and this is probably the last time I'm going to be able to wear them because they were so hard to get out of their packaging that, well, I just messed them up. So if you can get past the gigantic lashes that are sitting kind of strangely on my eyes, let's talk about the eyeshadows I'm wearing now. So I love reds and purples. Purple, clearly. And I was looking to go for something with some purple to it. So I decided on an Analogous color scheme. So I went mostly with purple or violet and a sort of a blue purple and then a sort of red purple. So the shadows I used are these three Makeup Geek shadows. I'm going to hide behind the book so that my camera will focus. The red brown, a sort of regular purple, there's my red brown. There's a sort of dark reddish, it's still a red brown but even darker, so I'm getting my red from there. I've got this pretty straight up kind of purple, and then for my lid, I used, this is the Urban Decay Alice Through the Looking Glass palette in the purple shade here, Gone Mad. And then for my transition color, I used this shade called Reflection, this sort of coral colored shade here. And the reason I chose those, so let's take a look at the color wheel. So the Analogous color scheme wants a violet and then a sort of a blue violet and then a reddish violet, and those are the Makeup Geek shadows. And so this is taking care of my blue violet, this is taking care of my violet, and then the combination of these two is taking care of my sort of red violet. How did I choose my transition color? Well, let's take a look at the color wheel again. And when we look at violet, if you look directly across from the color wheel, you get yellow. Now on my lid, I used blue violet. And since that was the most prominent color that I've got on, if you go directly across to get a complement of your blue violet, you get a yellow orange. So I wanted a sort of orangey tone that was kind of leaning toward coral, because on the color wheel, what is next to orange? Cats. It's red. So I wanted a sort of reddish orangish, but on a very light scale, because I knew that my crease colors were going to be pretty dark and my lid color was going to be pretty dark. So I went really light with the transition and kept it on the color wheel. Let me give you guys a zoom in of this eyeshadow look so you can see what's going on. Now this Urban Decay Alice Through the Looking Glass palette, it was limited edition, of course, so if you don't have it, this is just for example purposes. All of this works with any eyeshadow brands, palettes, anything. But one of the interesting things about this palette was that each of the rows, or columns I should say, the verticals, were designed around a different character in Alice in Wonderland. So let's just take a look at the color combinations for each of these characters and see if we can figure out how they work out on the color wheel. So this first row, the Alice row, has a blue color, which is a pretty straight up traditional blue. Now, if we look at the other colors that go along with it, this looks to be a orangish kind of a shade, and the blue and the orangish, we go basically add white, so make tints of blue and tints of orange. So we've got a light blue and a light orange. Those are complements of each other. So this is essentially a complementary color scheme for Alice. Now the next one is, I believe, the Mad Hatter's column here. So he's got this magenta pink, he's got a green, he's got a dark purple, and an orangish color of his own. The pink is, you could say that this either leans purple, so this might be in your sort of red-violet. It's a little closer to red, but if we look on the color wheel, what is directly across from red? It's green, and that is no surprise right there. Now, if we think about this as a potential, it's close to a split complement. The addition of the purple would be sort of a split complement. So we've got complementary colors with a split complement color thrown in there for good measure. Let's take a look at the second to last row here. So we've got a blue-green, sort of a teal color, and then we've got a dark blue. These are next to each other on the color wheel. And then if we were to go across from our blues, what are we running into now? We would run into orange, but split complement, we would hit red. So that is our red color. So we've got another sort of split complement, a little bit analogous with a split complement thrown in there to mix things up. So that's sort of the approach that some of the shades in this palette have taken based on the color wheel. Let me just show you a few more shadows. These are some of my Makeup Geek shadows. See if I can do this without them all falling out. Now, I've got a color quad here, which is taking advantage of a light purple and a light blue. It's kind of a blue-green. Now, these are across from each other, or next to each other on the color wheel. And to enhance them, we go across for a complement, and we get a sort of orangish shade here. And this is thrown in just as a sort of fun little highlight that you might choose to go along with a color scheme like that. Then you could kind of go the approach of stay in the purple family. So if we look at this little trio down here, I've got a dark purple, a light purple, and then for a transition color, just a muted sort of orangish brown. If we go into this duo over here, I went with colors that are next to each other. We went blue and purple are next to each other. This is a sort of muted purple mauve color to go with a sort of a bright, a dark but pop, very bold blue. And same thing with the pinks over here. So I've got a trio of pinkish purple, purplish, shimmer pinkish purple, and then I went with a mauve transition shade. So we've got examples of using complements, we've got examples of staying in the same color family, examples of kind of just building trios and quads based on colors that surround that area on the color wheel. So you can really take lots of different approaches when you choose your colors. Like I said, you can start out using all primaries or all secondaries or all tertiary colors. Those will always work. You can combine a primary and a secondary color. That's going to be a very colorful look if you want something bold and colorful. You can go with complements, which will always be a good way to choose like a transition shade to go with your main eyeshadow color, or you can use it to take your main eyeshadow color and then use a complement as your lower lash line color for just a little bit of pop, because you will tend to get a bold look with choosing complements. You can go with analogous color schemes, which are gorgeous. You pick 3 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel and probably go for a complement or a split complement as your transition or your accent color. You can basically combine these any way you want. There are no rules in makeup. These are just guidelines to get you started, and once you find your sort of rhythm in what you like in terms of choosing colors, this becomes much easier. You won't need to sit down and look at a color wheel in order to figure out your look. You'll be able to look at a palette and your eyes will start putting together things that go together because you've done it so many times. I am a huge fan of analogous color schemes for eyeshadow. That is almost always what I lean toward. I also like to do color schemes that are all tints and shades of the same family. So taking purple, having a light, medium, and dark purple. I'm kind of predictable that way. Smoky eyes work really well with that sort of tints and shades approach. Lots of different things you can do. So get yourself a color wheel. I will make available my color wheel file that you can download. I'll put the link down in the down bar below if you would like to use the color wheel that I've used in this video series. I hope you have found this helpful. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And if you would like to suggest anything for this sort of basics beginners how-to series on eyeshadow, again, leave the comments down below. I am open to suggestions and would love to hear what you guys are thinking of for this series. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming by and hanging out and geeking out over makeup with me. I hope you have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.